move it around or else it gets lost. All right, so we're going to be, so what was your question, Edna?
No, I got the
All right. What I would like you to do is begin to practice reframing right here on the spot. The way you do that is, I want you to think of a couple. Think of how each is probably reacting to the reaction of the other, and then reacting and reacting in such a way that it triggers the worst in the other, and then that person triggers how they're triggering one another. Now, if you have information coming from the interview that you've done until that point, most likely you would get a sense that sometimes they really care for each other when they're not caught up in the cycle. That what they would really like is not to be in this cycle, to be able to care for each other. Most often, people do get married because they feel attracted or they're in love. Most often. Unfortunately, not always. Like the case that we just heard. Nevertheless, there are most often times when they get along fine. When they're on vacation, when they're together, when the kids are asleep, whatever. And during those times, there's a warm feeling. So when I discover those positive times, I throw it into the reframe and said, I'll tell you what's sad here. The two of you really enjoy being with one another when you're not in this vicious cycle. Like when you're together at night and the kids are asleep, or when you've been on vacation and you're not in the cycle, you're just enjoying each other during those times. And if we could just get out of this cycle, we could have more of the positive. Or if I feel strongly enough from the discussion with them, and they've expressed affection for one another, yes, I do love him, despite the fact that he's a jerk, but I do love him, yeah. So, and you get the, I love her too. Despite the fact she's an idiot, but okay. So, if you could put in the fact that it sounds like the two of you love each other, but it's kind of, you're caught in this vicious cycle. When you come home and you find that she's this and that, and then you're on the phone because you feel he's not going to be responsive. So he sees you on the phone and you feel she's not there to say hello. So you go to your computer. So, and then she starts to yell that supper's on the table and you're late. And then you feel that, and when you yell, you trigger this, and when you trigger that, you act this way. And the both of you are caught in this cycle, each of you triggering things from the past, if you have that information, or triggering the worst reaction in the other, or reaction in the other that brings out the most ineffective response from you. And that's very sad. Because the bottom line is the two of you seem to really care for one another. So what are you doing with a reframe? Well, besides identifying the reframe as the enemy, you are confirming that there's a caring that they have for one another. And you make them aware of what they trigger in one another. And what your work is together. Your work is not to have him stop looking at his computer or that she should never be on the phone. Nah, that's not what they came into you for. So the work is how to find a way for the two of you to relate to one another in a more loving, more caring way, so that you you're not hurtful to one another. Then you ask them, how does that sound to you? I always ask that. How does that sound to you? Because I'm not Shlomo HaMelech, I'm not that smart. I can just guesstimate what's going on. And I need a confirmation. And sometimes you'll get a confirmation with a little tweak. Yeah, it's mostly right, but I just want you to know that you get a little tweak. And then you put that in. Thank you. And you weave it in. We didn't talk about it like this before?
Not as extensively.
Okay. So this is really important. So what I'd like to do is the following. It's an exercise, a group exercise. I want you to think of a couple. And in a sentence or two, maximum 3, what the dynamics are between them, why they came in, what they trigger in one another, and then, as if talking to them, give a reframe, as if talking to both of them. Okay, and we'll go around the room. Let me know when you have a couple in mind and when you have all these pieces, all the ducks lined up. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Leah, you got it? David, go ahead. Edna?
It's a little confusing for me because I'm thinking about EFT. And EFT talks about the cycle not as a reframing, but I think that we're talking about the same thing in slightly different.
EFT is very strong on reframing.
So
It's very strong on reframing.
It's just the reframing comes after the cycle, is that what you're saying? Like right in EFT, the reframing is the talking to each other.
No, it's
So-
the same, it's doing exactly the same thing, but not calling it reframing.
Right, that's right.
Mapping the cycle.
Right.
It's
But I
reframing.
talked already today. Thank you.
Reframing. And Gottman uses reframing, and Susan Heitley uses it. Everybody uses reframing.
IFS
They
couples
just call it a
therapy
different
also
name
uses.
because you can't charge money if you're going to use the same name. So you give it a different name and you put a price tag on it. Forgive my skepticism. I've been in the field too long. Okay. All right. Where do we begin? Yaakov.
Yeah. So
Hey, I forgot to talk about your wall. Okay. We'll talk about it another time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
so it's a couple in their 60s, and they've been married close to 40 years. She won't let him touch him for the last 11 years. He was hospitalized for 100 days with chronic leukemia, and he almost died. And after that, she didn't agree to have not to have relations, but not that he won't touch her. So it's been 11 years. So he has a lot of frustration. They started. I just in one more sentence. They started the marriage with he had a lot of anger tantrums, anger outbursts, and she got very fearful of that. So they didn't start off in a good place. And today, he controls his anger very well.
Okay, don't go into too much.
Right, I'm getting right to the point. And so, but she still has this trauma from his early anger, so she gets triggered if she senses in his voice even, or in his mannerism, that he's a little bit angry with her about something she did or didn't do. And then she retreats. And once she retreats, he feels like that she's punishing him. And and he feels like he feels like she's punishing him, and she feels like he's punishing her because he got angry with her instead of just opening up a discussion about it. So they're both feeling punished. They're both feeling bad, and
Reframe for them.
and that is their cycle. That she gets triggered, she retreats, and both of them want closeness, and they both get into a bad place when they act out their reactions.
Yaakov.
Now speak to them.
Speak to them, yeah. I think we're not going to be able to do this for everybody. We'll be here till next Pesach. So I think just give a reframe. We'll figure it out. Just reframe without the background. You know the case, and we'll see if the reframe makes sense. Go ahead.
So I see that when I'm speaking to the wife, I see that when you get triggered by sensing your husband's anger, which brings up things from the past, that you retreat, and then he feels like you're punishing him. You feel like you're being punished by her, and really you both want closeness, but you're getting to a really tough place through this cycle that's really wearing on you for so many years in your marriage. And if we could just figure out a way together not to get into this cycle or to back out of it when it starts to appear, then you can really maybe be able to express your closeness in the way that you both want to.
Okay, pretty good. Pretty good. I would tweak it a little bit, very slightly, when you speak of the trigger to lay it out. When you see him raise his voice, when you hear him raise his voice, when you see him, when you see his face tighten.
To mention the
to mention the specific thing, it reminds you of the time when he was very angry, and that frightens you, and you kind of, go to protect yourself. Listen to the language. Language is that of reasonableness. Reasonable. You go to protect it because nobody wants to get hurt. But when you go to protect yourself, you feel rejected, and as if she doesn't want to talk to you. And then that first gets you upset, and then you really act upset, and then you really hide, and two of you are caught in this vicious cycle. Okay. Now, without the background, just talk to the couple. David?
Okay. What's really sad here is that you guys really love each other and are very connected a lot of the times when you're not caught in this cycle. But when you...
First lay out the cycle.
I'm doing it now. When you, husband, see that she's anxious, you feel that she's not with you, not present, and that
it triggers in you.
It triggers in you.
It reminds you of
the loneliness you felt when nobody was with you.
That's right. So you see,
the loneliness you felt when nobody was with you. You tried to.
I just want to. I'm going to tweak everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
As I tweak, is that okay? It's a way of learning. That's why I'm doing it. When she gets anxious, what does she do? Because when she gets angry, she does something, says something, does something that we want to get to the trigger clearly.
When she gets anxious and needs to go, needs to move, needs to be doing something.
Because now
you feel
we want to protect her too in this. Remember, part of this reframe is that these are two good people who are doing what is reasonable, protecting themselves, wanting to be understood, whatever it is. It's they're doing it clumsy. They're not doing it well, or they wouldn't be in your office. But you don't necessarily lay that out. I sometimes do, but it depends on the couple. When
you
when
get
she gets-
when you get anxious and need to go,
no, that's not.
when you get anxious and
What does her going have to do with the anxiety?
she's not present with you.
No.
Shut
Retreats.
Does she
What's the
literally?
connection between her anxiety and going?
When she's anxious, she needs to be doing something, sometimes moving, and
Because
okay.
it reduces her anxiety, let's say. I don't know if it does. But what does it do? Does it reduce her anxiety?
Well, one second.
she goes,
the reason.
she-
Okay.
She has to be understood in humane terms. You know what I'm saying? She has to be understood.
Mhm.
When you get anxious, you Meshugana, and he reacts, also like a Meshugana. Nah, that's not the message we want to give. We want to
Okay, you know what?
humanize them.
Okay. I'm struggling here, but
We'll
let's-
come back to it. Think about it.
can I try?
Go ahead.
When you get anxious and shut down,
Because what do you should have? We have to
Alright.
explain why in a human way. She shuts down so that I'm making it up now. You shut down because you know that when you get anxious,
because he's trying to change you.
that's blaming him.
All right.
No.
Okay. Well, I'll think
Okay,
about it.
We'll come back
I'll
to
think
you.
about it.
Okay, it needs tweaking.
Okay.
You're all learning from this? Okay. When I tweak one of you, the rest of you are learning, and you are too, hopefully. Aryeh.
Yeah, I'm trying
Aryeh, poor Aryeh. Aryeh got 2 hours
Nobody
sleep
wants-
maybe.
Nobody wants to go now, they're gonna get over tweaked.
It's okay, I'll try.
Is that true?
I'm anyway so tired.
No,
it's not.
I could reframe that, but let it go.
But it seems some
Yeah,
people.
Are you okay with my tweaking?
Yeah, it's hard, but it's okay.
Is anybody scared
better.
now? Is anybody
Oh, God.
I
frightened?
prefer it than when
You
it's.
prefer the tweaking?
Okay, here we go.
That's the way, or else I can't teach. I mean,
I
that's
wasn't
what I'm,
listening. I was trying to
that's
figure
what I'm
out
trying to
this case
do.
over here.
Go ahead. And if I don't do that, then you're gonna mess up with the reframe. Then the reframe will be in such a way that it'll be somebody who's Meshuggah. But this way,
Could be that in your attempt to teach.
It's okay.
You're actually anxious and then less able to learn, even though your intentions really
She's
are.
that could be, and I so appreciate your tweaking of
But
my
now he's starting
teaching.
to feel watched
It's like-
and anxious and
You know.
criticized.
It's hard to
I
really
really-
take in new information when you're worried if you're gonna get judged
Yeah.
on what you put out.
So, you're speaking for yourself. Now, what about the others?
I'm fine.
Okay, I'll have a go.
Chaya
So,
gets very
we-
anxious
Very
when I
comfortable with you
tweak.
tweaking them.
Huh?
Thank you, very appreciate it.
And tweak we shall do. Go ahead,
Right.
Aryeh.
so I wasn't listening so much because I was thinking of this case. So,
I'm identifying with a man that hasn't slept very much. Aryeh was the northern part of the country, so
yeah.
left 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, go ahead.
So, when he, let's go like this. I want to
No,
start.
give it a name. When you, Moshe,
Yeah.
Okay,
This is like-
okay. When you Moshe, can't say it, I'm South African. When you Moshe.
Moshe.
Moshe. Now, when you Chaim, ignore your wife.
That's already accusing.
Thank you. Okay. When you Moshe are afraid of
When you get scared,
when you get scared to get close to your wife.
something's wrong with you already, Moshe. I can see that.
Okay.
You're scared to get close to your wife.
Okay. Okay. When you Moshe, you're afraid of intimacy without.
That makes him a pretty sick guy,
Okay.
you know. We don't want any sick people here.
Right.
We don't want any evil people here. We're bad people. No, they're good people who we're humanizing.
Right. We're trying.
Okay, Ari, tell me what happens.
He's afraid He doesn't know. He's afraid.
I'm going to play one out, but
No, it's
I'm
fine. Let
making
me
Go
finish
ahead.
my sentence, and then you can do whatever you want with it.
You're worse than I am. Okay, go
Right.
ahead.
I just
See, that
reframed
I
it.
just got a compliment.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
The bottom line thing is that he finds that he's afraid to get close to her because he doesn't know how to without having intimacy, physical
Without
intimacy.
having,
Physical intimacy. He doesn't know how to be close. He's a very physical person in that sense. That's why he will express his care and love for her.
okay.
Right.
So let's.
So he will
Can
ignore.
I
Go on.
tweak this?
Sure, of
As we
course.
go along?
Sure.
And I won't be interrupting you. Okay. Which I don't want to do. Okay. When you want to come close to her and be affectionate, you become aroused because you're attracted, and your arousal wants to move towards intimacy.
Yeah, but
Okay, does that sound? Now, what I did, I think that was the tweaking, was I normalized it. You come close to her. See, you say you don't know how to be intimate. You don't know how to be affectionate without being intimate. So that's kind of accusatory. You don't know how to do it, you stupid guy. As opposed to when you come close to her, you become aroused because you're attracted to her. And you have a strong urge to be intimate with her. And then you go to her. And so you move in that direction towards intimacy, which affects you as all you want is sex. I'm making that up. All you want is sex. Can't you see me as a human being? And so you pull away. And then you feel rejected, and then you feel angry, and then you. Okay, does that sound more human? All you want is sex because, in your life experience, that's the way you experience men, and you want to be loved for who you are as a person. So, okay, so each one of them needs to be understood very humanly, very, he gets turned on by me because he's attracted. That's not bad. But yet it affects me. I'm talking as her. It affects me because I'm sensitive about just being seen as a sex object. I don't think I ever talked about it like that, but you've reframed it now for them. You know? Is that tweak helpful? No, I don't know what the case really is, but is it?
no, it is. I'm looking at what's in my head is him, the other side. In other words, the next part of the cycle. You took it. You
I took it
started from a
to the
different
other
side of the cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at he doesn't show up, or he knows she doesn't like. He knows she doesn't like it.
When he
So-
begins to get intimate.
So he ignores her and will, get busy with other
Okay.
things.
So listen. He knows he doesn't like it. He does
So
it
that-
anyway. Is he a monster?
Not at
No,
all.
he's not a monster. The more he feels rejected, the more he becomes. He wants to assure himself that she's attracted to him. Something like that. When she pulls away, because you've already done, hopefully, you've already done an interview. We say, what's it like for you when she pulls away? And he says, well, I feel rejected. Like she doesn't care. She doesn't find me attractive as a man. And what happens for you when he comes on to you like that? And she'll say, well, he comes into the kitchen. I'm in the middle of cooking. I have, we've got a bunch of kids that have to be fed. We have to be on time. He gets romantic. The timing is off. What do? I just say, oh, please, not now. And when she says, please, what now? What does that mean to you? Oh, it's always not now. Well, what does it mean to you? She doesn't care. Yeah, you have to do the right interview before. And the interview, because you're aiming for this point of reframe. If you aim for the reframe, that's your guide, certainly in the initial sessions. What happens for you? What happens to you? What does it mean to you? How do you feel about that? What does it mean to you? And then what do you do? So you have the feelings, the thoughts, the meaning, the thoughts, and the behaviors, and how each of those behaviors affects the other. That'll give you information. When you do this for a half hour, you get a lot of information. Then you can do your reframe. That makes sense? Okay. This is important to talk about because it affects the whole interview that you're doing in terms of what you're looking for. You're looking for that systemic picture and humanizing
very interesting.
each one.
This is what I'm learning. I'm saying, what I'm thinking about, like I do this the whole time, reframing, and what I'm hearing from you now today is an extremely valuable point, because you normally either begin with the behavior. Generally in a cycle, when one of them does something, how does it impact them? How does it make them feel? How they react? And when they react, how do you feel? And how do you react? What you're throwing in over there, and I guess that's what I am struggling with just for the moment, is having the deeper understanding of that original behavior.
Right.
And
the
then
human way.
And then we use the word humanizing, but it's kind of throwing a different, the struggle of that behavior as opposed to the reactivity of it.
Yeah. The behavior is the tip of the iceberg. That's what
Right.
you can see.
Right.
Everything underneath.
As I said, I feel like you started one step. You didn't start by the other, but you started one step behind him. In other words, whatever that behavior, what that's about, or what it could be about.
I'm not understanding what you're saying now.
No.
What do you mean you step?
Well, not normally. I'm saying that normally what I would look for when I look for a cycle or look for a dance of some sort. So I'll look for some type of, let's say, behavior. When you came home and you didn't do this, right? So you would start with that behavior and then see how that impacted and affected her, and then when she, and then go and start from that way around. But in that original behavior that you're noticing, giving that a story in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think is
validating.
And that explains
Humanizing
the
it.
behavior, and in a human way, and it helps the other understand. Yeah, she said that because she's hurt, and that's because she grew up that way, and she had hoped that when she gets married, she wouldn't be experiencing the same thing again. And there, that looked exactly like that experience. So that's why you reacted, which is the way you reacted as a kid, and it worked as a kid. But somehow, when she does that, you also have your areas of sensitivity, like we all do. And, what it reminds you of is blah, blah. And so you react, and that's it. And you both get caught up in the cycle. Your objective is to get rid of any villainization. Nobody's sick. Nobody is. Now, you're going to find marriages where somebody is sick. I don't know. It will be much more difficult. And it's a different approach that you take when you have a narcissistic individual.
Or how about a violent?
Or violent.
Abusive, yeah.
So then you can reframe.
It's such a difficult reframe to do that. I'm struggling. I have a
Do you work
DV
with abusive clients?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm busy working with a heavy case at the moment. it's almost invalidates the other when you say,
Yeah.
you know, you feel so misunderstood, and then you hit your wife.
Yeah.
Like, it's
No,
such
with
a.
abuse you can't.
Of course not, exactly. So it doesn't work in all.
There's abuse.
In
Because
all
that's not
areas.
human to do that. Humanizing.
Unless,
Well,
unless
he
you
was
give
beaten.
a
No.
reframe
Yeah, well,
enough
this
to
guy
sort of
was
lay the
beating the living
ground
daylights out of his dad.
for him to do his own work.
You
and
know,
come back.
and
No, but the
he doesn't
this,
have any.
the reframing is treating both of their reactions as equal.
Doesn't have. I'm saying the humanization piece
Not
won't be
only-
appropriate.
When you
We
hit
can
her,
use this as a
when you
basis.
hit her, I mean,
It's okay.
the other guy, when you hit her, what did you want to happen? I mean, it'll be part of the interview. What did you want?
Yeah, I wanted to
happen?
stop criticizing.
Wanted to stop criticizing. When she criticizes you, what does that mean to you? What happens inside of you?
Get out of control.
You feel out of control?
Out of control.
Yeah. Where'd you get that sensitivity to criticism?
Yeah, my father used to beat me up the whole time.
See, that's the same question. I think you asked it, Lizzie, or Leah, I remember. I think Lizzie asked it, where did you learn that? So I
Yeah.
just asked it a
Oh,
little
it's
differently.
clear.
So, like, where did you get that sensitivity?
I don't feel comfortable reframing that way in front of a.
Wait. I'm still doing the
Huh?
work with him.
You
I'm still
might
doing the work. I'm not
with him,
reframing
just
yet.
him.
I'm not reframing yet. But I think we could reframe. I'm sorry. I don't know if I would reframe, but I would say to you, when you say, I don't want to be criticized, okay, if she didn't criticize, is that all that you want from your marriage? Not to be criticized? No, you'd say, no, what else would you like? Let's say we got rid of all criticism, which may be very difficult because you're two human beings, but let's say all criticism was gone. What else would you like from your marriage? You'd probably say, I want to be respected, okay? And, we can get from respected to love pretty quickly, or cared for or respected. So, is it working?
No.
No, it's not working. So, I understand why you would want to feel respected and loved, but what you're doing is not working. It seems to have the opposite effect. And maybe what we have to do is find a way for you to get that love you want and eliminate that which is not working. Because throwing things and yelling is just terrifying.
Yeah, well, it's her. She's the one who's telling her to stop criticizing.
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll work on it. But I'm a little concerned about what happens inside of you, and I would want to help you to be able to find a better way of getting what you want. Because what you want is reasonable. The way you're doing it, not reasonable. It's not working. You don't like it.
It doesn't sound right to me.
Maybe we
because
should stay on.
Yeah.
Without,
Yeah.
For
when
the
it comes to
Okay.
non-abusive
violence, I
Yeah.
think the whole.
Let's go with the non-abusive. Let's put away
When
No,
it's
it's
because
abusive, it's a whole different thing.
abusive people I don't work with as couples.
Big deal.
But I know, I that's
There are ways to use reframe for that.
there's a
but
way to
for
review
today,
it, that's all. And let's go back to
let's go back to
reframe. Thank you,
non-abusive
Chaya.
couple.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I try again?
We'll come back, but because I want to
Okay.
go to Edna. Do you want to?
I spoke today, maybe other people
Okay.
need it.
Lizzie,
more.
do you want to reframe that couple that you brought in already this morning about that she doesn't have choice, or how would you reframe that for the couple?
Oh gosh, I've never one prepared here.
That's fine.
But I'll do that, because that's it is a hard point for me. Wow. See, they're not mean to each other. They're very nice to each other. She just gets these thoughts. So I don't know. This is a cycle.
I've got a guy like that.
What?
I have a guy like that.
You have a
She
guy?
gets
husband-
these
husband-
thoughts,
Well,
She
Yeah.
felt he was pushed into
but they're in therapy. They
in
want something.
Well, they're in therapy for something else. This just comes up. They're here there for their intimate relationship.
Well, It's all related, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, so I'll try.
I know you're a sex therapist. You
No,
know,
because
do
I-
this, do that, and that,
No, I
and then
don't-
call me in the
no.
morning. But listen.
It's not all behavior.
I know, I'm only kidding.
Okay.
I'm being nasty, you know. Go ahead, Liz.
This really is not of their problem, their cycle.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to ask her because she may not have the information in her interview if that's what they came in for.
No, they
She may not
don't,
have the
that
information
it's
to
not
do
a
it.
cycle for the two of them. He's very there for her and very patient about this. He does not get triggered and upset by it.
Right.
So I don't see a cycle when it comes to her getting every once in a while these,
What does he do that gets her to have those thoughts?
it just comes up. He's so
In his
sweet
effort,
and
in his effort to stay connected, he keeps the focus on her and taking care of her, and that's kind of how they started their relationship. But when all the focus is on her, and he doesn't really bring so much of his stuff in, she can feel pretty lonely, because who is it that's loving him? Her.
he does bring his stuff in. And
Yeah.
he does.
She can take care of him.
She can take care of him. She loves him. I think it's more of a personal thing. That she wants to stay in the marriage. They're trying to get pregnant. She loves him.
Then what's their problem? Why are they coming to you?
She doesn't have orgasm.
Huh?
She doesn't have orgasm. She doesn't feel. She's not there yet. That whole part of her body is very traumatized, and she gets nervous, and she's very very.
What does nervous look like? What is she thinking? What is she feeling? What's going on inside? What's the nervous?
I've tried so hard and it hasn't happened yet. We're married 2 years. Is it ever going to happen? And then I reframe and say, you're not really married 2 years in a sexual relationship, because in the beginning there couldn't be one because she was
Sick.
not well.
Yeah.
So
So
that whole area is traumatized, and that all those thoughts.
would she like it to be different?
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
she'd like it. And
How
then-
would it be if it was different? What would have to happen for it to be different?
So when we did the sculpting, she saw she would like it to be that they're both. I'm trying to think of the picture. They're just side by side, holding hands and relaxed. That's the name she gave.
Side by side, facing outwards? Or
Together, one next to each other, holding
Facing out.
hands.
So
and
when a couple is facing outwards, they're not facing each other.
they were
then-
very close in
Well,
holding hands.
Close, yeah, but I don't know. My Chavrusa and I are very close.
My sense with a couple
Do you hold
like
hands
that.
with him?
I'm
Yeah.
very attached.
Lizzie, my sense with a couple like that is she's tired of being the project.
She started being a project.
She's tired of being the project. She was the project with the cancer. She's the project around the chemo. She's the project around not having orgasm. And the side by side, as you share with me, it's not just about me. I want to be able to give me a real job.
What do you mean,
that-
give me a real
Meaning,
job?
she doesn't have a real job because he's kind of okay as long as she's okay.
It's not so okay. He has his issues also in the bedroom. It's hard for him also. He feels like, he can't wait so long for her. There are issues there, but,
Now she has all this
The ones-
anxiety around
The
it.
one who usually gets that, they sap more of the emotional energy, they get taken care of. There's usually this sense of like, I'm not really relevant, you don't really need me. And so,
she's more afraid he's gonna leave her one day. For some reason,
because
that's
she's
the
irrelevant, because what does she really do for him? Because
She wants
he's
to
not
leave it.
really taking up space. And so who is it that's loving me? How am I really relevant to you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know
I
you.
get that feeling.
You don't have
That
issues.
feeling
I don't
needed
get
as
that
well.
feeling
There, there,
Like,
there's-
I can take care of you too. You can be
Well, his needs.
vulnerable too. I'm tired of being the focus all the time. Even in a kind, caring way, it's all about me, and that makes me feel icky. I want to be able to feel relevant to
Why is
you in a
she-
real way.
Lizzie, do you think part of it is now like the anxiety cycle over not being able to orgasm, and so now, yeah.
Why is she afraid he'll leave her? Because what?
She has, she had an uncle who committed suicide. There's a lot of depression in the family. She's worried that she's on the edge
Is she
of
depressed
depression.
now?
She's
What?
too much
Is she
of a,
depressed now?
I don't think so.
that she's too much of a burden or a disappointment?
No, that she feels the abandonment, like people can just leave you. People that you love can leave you. And maybe I'll even have to leave you because one day I'll realize that I didn't choose you. So there's a lot of that fear of,
Okay.
so I don't know the
Just-
cycle.
Let me just suggest, Lizzie, that you kind of get a sense as to, there is a cycle. You may not have identified it yet because the focus is on sex, possibly. But if you move to the relationship and you move to anxiety, you move to thoughts and feelings and then behaviors, a lot happens before they get into the bedroom, and that affects the bedroom. What is it? What's happening? And if you can figure that out, it's a more complex way of framing it for yourself and for them. That's very possibly one of the factors that's giving them some sexual issues as well. It's not just that she was sick years ago. There are women who were sick here, the men or women who were sick.
It wasn't so long ago. I mean, they're married 2 years.
Okay, so it was a period of time
And
ago.
she still has to go for MRIs and it comes up
Okay.
again.
You may have tapped out one of the factors, but then there are a lot of other factors. Tap them out. And see if you can come up with a cycle. Think along the lines of trying to build a cycle. Okay? Leah.
I just want to say something about this. It seems to me very reasonable that a woman that feels, afraid of being together,
What is she
rejected,
afraid of?
Ninteshek, how do you say?
Abandoned.
Abandoned, and feels all those mixed emotions about the connection and if she chose it or not. It's like she's not all there. So
But here's a guy,
what? So
he chose her when she
so
was
she's
sick.
not all there. So it's the whole thing about enjoying or feeling the intimacy is blocked by all those. So it's very reasonable that she can't get there.
Okay.
So can that be a reframing?
Maybe, I don't know, that Lizzie would
Does it
have
sound-
to tease that out in the interview. You tease it out in the interview, getting to understand the feelings and thoughts and the behaviors that are going on between them. Think systemically,
So maybe the intimacy is blocked because of the fear of abandonment. They can't fully be present.
If she said that, did she say that?
Not in the same sentence,
I'm
but
gonna ask her, does that go through your mind?
I think it's the over-focus on her, and that also blocks intimacy, because good intimacy is when you can kind of focus on self and focus on other, and focus on self and focus on other, and have that weaving in and out of that. But when it's all on you, that, anxiety and intimacy just don't go well together. So all the spotlight on you,
Yeah, but he has difficulties
I
as
think
well.
that's, when I hear
Yes,
that,
it does,
it
right.
feels like
He also has
she
different-
wants to take a turn out of the spotlight a little bit. Feel
I'm,
relevant.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank
what's
you, everybody.
What's happening here, and I understand how it can happen, because we get into a case, you wanna reframe it, in order to understand it, we get into the case, but we continue to get into the cases, we have half the class who has not yet been able to give a reframe.
Did that sound like a reframe what I did? Said?
No, it wasn't meant to be.
I was trying to.
Very
My
good,
intention
okay. Yes.
was to reframe.
Oh, over my head. All right,
I have another
Leah.
couple.
Okay, I thought I had it reframed, but I really don't. Okay, so husband, when you come home from work and you really want to connect to your wife and your family, I'm stuck already.
Go
I'll
ahead.
tell you what the dynamic
And
is and you're afraid that you're gonna get criticized when you walk in the door.
you afraid of what?
Gonna get criticized when you walk in the door. That
Yeah.
already paints her as bad, right?
And you anticipate getting criticized, yeah.
Right.
So you,
And so you've got your phone on backup.
so
You
you
know, because
protect
you
yourself.
protect yourself by having your phone
Add
available.
that in. So you protect yourself,
So you protect yourself.
not you rascal, you know, pick up your phone.
But she already feels like a rascal.
Well, he is afraid of getting criticized.
Right.
He has a sensitivity. He's been criticized all his life.
No,
he
see,
wasn't.
that's what's tripping me up here. I was never criticized until I married her.
Okay, okay.
Because he was so successful in flying under the radar until then. But now when he's married, it's harder to fly under the radar.
Maybe. I wasn't under the
Sounds
radar.
good.
I was
Okay.
right after everyone else.
Let's
Sounds
move
good
with
to
it.
them.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you come home and you want to connect, and at the same time you're afraid of getting criticized, so it makes sense you protect yourself by having your phone handy, so that
You won't
if
be
you
hurt.
get triggered,
You won't be
so
hurt.
you won't be hurt, and so you escape. You escape by going onto your phone and
You protect yourself rather than escape.
fine.
Yeah.
You protect yourself by going on your phone,
And when you go on your phone.
and when you go on your
that's
phone,
behavior.
when you go on your phone, you, wife, feel rejected. And when you feel rejected, and really what you want to do is connect, so then the things that you say to your husband, which you're attempting to use for connection, come across critical,
Right, and then you.
and then it
recall
triggers
yours.
him into saying,
Good.
okay, now I have been criticized.
Excellent, good. Okay, good.
But there's so much more.
Sure.
And the cat's like,
Yes, there is, but that's a refrain.
It,
That's a refrain. Because each is understandable.
Yeah.
That's where you're going. Yeah.
Okay, I'm also gonna struggle with this, but we'll try. I'll use names, it's easier. Okay, so when you Yoili wanna really share a lot and you feel passionate and you've got a lot to say
Because you want
because
to connect.
because you really want to connect and because you were often ignored as a kid. And now you've got the opportunity, you're married and you've got a wife to share with, and that to you that was the ideal of marriage, to have to share and to give of yourself. And Malki feels that Malki feels like it's oversharing. It reminds her of her mother.
Well, Malki feels you're oversharing. She's not a nice lady.
Okay, so I've got so that's why I want to think of how to say it, because it
Okay.
reminds her of
So
her.
Malki
gets reminded.
Gets reminded.
Malki of-
Okay, go straight to the reminder. It reminds Malki of her mother oversharing after the divorce, stuff that was just not appropriate for a little girl
And
to hear,
She grew up
and
with
she
that. It felt
feels-
very choking to
and it
her.
feels very
Okay,
comforting.
separate.
Yeah.
And so she reacts by
So she reacts by pulling apart, by pulling away, by
leaves you ignored,
yeah.
and
So
you get upset, and then
yeah. So and
okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, both want connection, and
Right,
both
we
all you
both want
both really want
connection.
is safe
We have to
connection.
find a way where you can connect, and you don't feel overwhelmed, and when you do feel overwhelmed, to find a way
To
of
share
letting
it.
you know that you're not being
Yeah.
rejected, and so
Yes, I
we
thought a
have-
way to actually share that this is overwhelming, so that he actually feels she's connecting to him,
right,
rather
that's
because
right.
as soon as he feels that, he's all with her with it, but instead she just withdraws, and that's where I feel the refrain is. Yeah. Okay.
There we are.
Okay, so when you, Anna, are waiting the whole day for your husband to come home, and you feel exhausted, overworked, and frustrated, and you can't wait to see him, you hold your breath and you're waiting to connect, and then when he walks in the door exhausted, or when you, Moshe, are exhausted from work and are looking forward to have a little time for yourself before you connect with your family, you feel a tap from Anna, who is waiting for you. Do you want to criticize something? You want to add?
Well, when you come home after a day of work, working in an environment that's constantly busy and constantly keeping you going, you need some downtime. You look forward to downtime when you come home. You want to be able to relax quietly. It's not that you want to in any way reject your wife, but you just need the downtime, right? Yeah, we'll say. So you come home and you
come home and you're
And the
retrieving to your room for moments of breath and me time,
okay,
with the intention to come back out and be with your wife, but that time of being alone triggers in Anna.
and
Makes her
however,
feel
when he
like
goes to his room, then you turn to her.
Then you feel like
you've been waiting
rejected.
for him
You've
to
been
come
waiting
home,
so long
and now he goes to his room, and you feel
left alone and not cared for.
unloved. And so you react in a hurtful way by criticizing him, which really what you're looking to do is make a connection with him, but it comes across as criticism. And when you get the criticism, it takes away your, it affects the way you can connect because you're hurt. And so the both of you end up being hurt, and neither of you want to be hurt. Both of you want to connect to one another. But the downtime is experienced as rejection, and the call for connection is experienced as criticism. And the both of you find
frustrates
yourselves
her even
alone.
more, and they want to get
It's
divorced.
very sad.
Wow.
And two people who want to connect, two people who want to connect as you both do, both feel so alone. It's very sad. Got it? Got it.
Okay.
Can you?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is similar to Leah and Livia's. I actually wrote it down. Okay, I'm just gonna use, it's not real names, I'm just gonna use names because it's easier for me, okay? So when you, Mark, come home, you're exhausted from your day, from working hard to support your family, and from the stressors at work, and you just need space. You don't want someone else to ask you to do anything else or make any demands because you're exhausted from your busy day. And when you need space, you go into your room or you stay on your phone because you need to retreat, because you need to recharge. And then it makes you, Sarah, feel like he doesn't care, and it makes you feel lonely because you're looking to connect, because you also just had an exhausting day and you're totally touched out from your kids and the kids in the classroom, and you just want to connect to an adult and to someone you love because you love him and you just want to talk to him at the end of the day. But then when you try to reach out and he's exhausted, and he's exhausted
And he's in his room.
and he's in his room, so he doesn't respond to you. And that makes you pursue him even more because you're hurt and you're trying to connect. But it makes you, Mark, feel like there's another demand being placed on you, which makes you withdraw even more.
Good.
And it's
Good.
okay.
Lovely.
But where do you see his wish for connection as opposed to just wanting space from her, from space?
Meaning, so he does want to connect, but it's not in this.
But it's a timing thing for him.
It's a timing thing for him, right? Meaning part of that is his working to support the family and him.
In fact, he's resting up so that
So
he can
right,
then
that's why I
connect.
said retreat and recharge. Actually, I wrote that down because he's
so that he can connect to her.
right. He's
And
taking
He's
space
recharging his battery so that he can
So-
come and connect
yeah.
to her.
so that he can come back. But then she takes that as rejection, and then she pursues even more, and then he
Right.
views it as another demand.
Super. Yafeh. One more.
So I actually had somebody come in last night where it was this sort of reframe for her, at least, that what I said was essentially, you know, she came in saying, I just feel like we don't belong together because we're just too different. We're too different. I said, it's amazing that you say that because I see two people who are a perfect reflection of each other. You both want exactly the same things. You both want to
Did you get that information from them?
Yes, they were
Okay.
not new to me.
Okay.
You know, you both want to be loved. You both want to be acknowledged. You both want to be validated. You don't both want to feel seen. But what happens is, you know, he comes home at the end of the day looking for affection, and he doesn't find it in the way that he anticipates it, or in the way that he wants to be getting it in that moment. So he enters immediately a place of disappointment because he's afraid that she doesn't want to connect as well. So he goes straight from looking for connection to disappointment. She reads his mood, and
And what does he do? How does
The
what's the
disappointment?
behavior that triggers
he
her?
becomes sullen and quiet.
Okay.
Okay? And she reads his mood.
In order, I would just to tweak it,
Yeah.
he becomes quiet. Why would he become quiet in a human way? Would it be to protect himself, to see how her mood is?
He wants her to know that he's hurt.
Okay. He wants you to know that he's hurt.
Because he
Perfect.
wants to, so she then reads this mood, which is what he wants in a way, but she pulls back further because she has learned from history to avoid conflict.
Right.
That conflict is something to be avoided. And then in pulling back further, he feels more unloved, more uncared for, more like his needs are unrecognized. And without an outlet for all these feelings that are building up, it results in an explosion.
Okay. And we have to find a way of getting around that. Okay. Thank you very much. This took longer than I thought. But all right, I hope it was worthwhile because it's an important part of the interview and the sikkum of the interview, which then sets the agenda for the for therapy. David, hold up. Okay.
I just want to ask, you know, when you are trying to understand the cycle, wouldn't it be better to ask them what happens to them, how they feel when she sees that, when she behaves like
in
that?
the interview. So what happens when you see her like this? What happens for you? What does it mean for you?
Okay,
I'll
so
say it.
and then I put it out for them.
And
the
then
way
I'd say, do you know that? What is it that you wanted to do? My interview is systemic. So you're doing the interview, so you're getting all the information that you need.
You're just picturing the reframing.
Yeah, you're picturing where you want to go. Where you want to go. You want to get to that reframe. Because, yeah.
I just want to say I find it helpful to draw it on a whiteboard, and then if they have any corrections, they can help me. If I did something, if I didn't get it, I erase it and then write it correctly. And
What
then
would you put on the whiteboard?
the cycle.
The what? The cycle?
I map the cycle on the
You
whiteboard.
can do that. That's an
And then-
EFT kind of a thing, isn't
And
it?
then,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I take a picture so that we also have it as a record,
You can do that. Yeah, you can do
and we
that.
refer to it.
No harm. No harm done. It could be helpful. Yeah.
It seems to be important for them to be able to correct. If I didn't get it right, I don't want to come as the mumche to their
No,
emotions
no.
and
You're getting the
behaviors.
information from them.
Okay.
That's a very important point. You're getting the information from them, and you go after that
I
information.
know, but maybe I didn't understand it, so I think.
So you ask.
Yaakov's
You say,
idea
I
is very
didn't quite
important.
understand that. When you say he does this, what does it mean to you? What is it that bothers you about it?
Okay, I just wanna,
Did you ever experience that before in your life? You know, did you ever You
And
know,
also, when you ask at the end, you said you always ask, how does that feel for you, and let them correct it. So then you'll ask for their input, because they might then say, no, it's not quite that way, it's that, and then you've read.
yeah.
It's like
and
you're
you
still
go
not
with
saying, I'm not presenting it, this is the story. I think.
that. You always go with it. Does that make sense to you?
Can I add, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I think when you're reframing, you're offering them a narrative that feels more hopeful. It's giving them a narrative that's more joining each other on the same team. So in the interview, when you're asking, when you withdraw, when you retreat, when you go into your room and close the door, what are you afraid will happen if you come out? Well, it'll just make things worse. Usually you have one that withdraws because they don't want to make, so you have this funny way of protecting the relationship. And thinking of not just protecting themselves, but protecting the relationship. And if you say nothing, what do you think will happen? Nothing. They're flatlined. So you're kind of bringing in the defibrillator for the relationship. Just comes off as very aggressive. Just in the tracking, you can ask about how it's protecting the relationship. And then in the reframe, you give that back to them, that they have this way that each of them protects the relationship or the connection, but it comes off to the other as pushing away or aggressive or withdrawn. But it's a new story about the same
It's a new
events
story.
that joins them on the same team, that they have the same intention, which is protection of the relationship, not of
Right.
and
Um,
that's a more workable,
Or even just
hopeful.
yeah, then who's right?
Right.
Then who's right about the blue couch,
And there's something that I say just to make sure that I'm not like putting my own thing on it that George Fowler does is he'll say like, okay, so let me know if I'm getting this correctly, right? Let me know if I'm seeing this correctly, right? And that way you're kind of putting it as a question of, so when you come home, right, and you're putting it as a question kind of, and then they could say like, yeah, no, that's not quite right. And almost like, it's not doubling, but it's almost like you're.
It's much more
Yeah,
collaborative.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
seems to me important.
It's like, one of the things I learned when I got trained in psychoanalysis was that when you give an interpretation, it has to already, when you give the interpretation has to be so evident already to the patient that you're almost just saying what has emerged already. And to a great degree, in your interview, you're emerging it. You're causing it to emerge. Your questions. Well, how did you feel when he did this? What were you thinking? What did you want to happen when you did this? So it sounds like you really wanted her to be very responsive and to listen to your day and all that. So, but the way you approached it, so you did this and that, and when you heard him do this and that, what was it like for you? It's something you just go back and forth, it'll emerge.
But the question that I want to introduce into the interview is to bring that out of how, for them in their own understanding, it's the better choice. What do you think would have happened if you responded? It would have made things worse. What do you think would have happened if you didn't respond? Nothing. You would never have sex. So that question helps clarify that the intention was actually more connection or positive. In the like tracking helps that come out from each of the couple. I like that.
In the time that's left, as I said, this took longer than I thought. I do hope we used our time wisely. I'm going to put off the counterpoint next week, and in light of what we've already done, I want to teach a method that also externalizes the issue. What does reframe do? The two of you are just victims of this enemy called the cycle. You both got into it. When you get into it, it stands in the way of your connection. Now, what I'm gonna ask is, you gotta leave, right, take care, have a Yom Tov, V'na'im. She was already practiced with as a couple with you, David, right? Who was playing the husband a couple of weeks ago? Who here knows of a couple that the both of you had talked about and you rehearsed? Remember a couple of weeks ago? I want a couple. I want to show you how to do something, but I need a couple. If we don't have a couple, then we'll just create one. All right? Do any of you remember what that couple looked like a couple of weeks ago? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah, I remember, I don't remember the details
You
of
remember
Arya's
the details, you and Arya were doing it. Whose case was it? Yours or Arya's?
It was his.
It was your case, Arya. All right. Who hasn't worked? Shmuel, I'm gonna get you up front.
I'm already up
Front and
front.
center, huh?
I'm already up front.
You're up front, okay.
He didn't reframe.
So let's move on though.
Were you working with Shmuel?
No, I said he didn't do a reframe. He got out of it.
All right. Leah, I'm gonna put you with Shmuel. I want you to play a role.
Okay.
Okay. You have a case in mind. Let me take your case. What is your case?
Well, this is my other case. So this case where he is afraid of criticism, he only admits that anything in his life went wrong when he married her. They don't have a positive basis to look back on. The idea of marriage, nice boy, nice girl, seemed to go, but very, very little there between the two of them at the beginning. Why did he get married in the first place? It was a show, you know. He's looking for warmth and
You got a
approval.
sense of the guy with the guy he's experiencing? Yeah?
It's a very common answer.
I know, it's crazy to me.
It's a very
How
common
combative.
It's
answer.
very,
Why did you get
it's very
married?
not honest.
Um,
Very not honest.
It's very honest.
It's very honest
At this
sometimes.
point in their marriage,
Well,
Just like sometimes I hear.
probably.
Folks,
Say,
folks,
it's
folks.
In my work.
In your world,
He's
but
very
even in my, even in the
approval
modern
seeking.
Orthodox
Wait,
world.
what's happening?
Approval
What's
seeking?
happening?
Meaning,
And likes to give me positive feedback about great discussion. Thanks so much for listening.
Who does that? The husband?
And what's she about? What was it about her?
She comes from a critical family. More distance, is horrified at his oversharing with his family, and so her place is as being his destroyer a little bit, because his family just created this amazing guy, and she destroyed him, is destroying him, and she feels completely.
She feels that.
He feels
But she-
you destroy me with your criticism.
Yeah.
And she feels you don't see me at all for who I am and all the positive that I am, and you just put me in this little box as being critical and distant and wrong all the time.
And
And neither of them can orgasm. Well,
and what does he say?
Neither of them are.
What does he say?
Orgasm.
It-
She can't orgasm and he
Shmuel,
has
come a
to
little
talk
closer.
about it.
Come a little closer,
Sorry.
Shmuel, because you're gonna play the guy. And if you have any questions, you can find out from Leah. Leah, what does she want in this man?
She wants to be accepted for who she is.
She wants to what?
What
She
is
wants to be accepted for who she is.
Which is what is
I
is
am
that?
who I am.
I am who I am. I'm like a
Yeah.
modest, contained person. I have a lot of value and values.
What are some of those?
I strongly value your attempts at ruknias when you do them or don't do them, like your learning, your adopting that you don't do, all that. Those are things that are important to me
That he doesn't.
that he doesn't do,
Yeah.
like my father did. I value.
Is there an obvious pursuit of distance?
Okay. Well, Leah, switch roles with Leah. And Leah, what does he say to that?
What does he say to that?
Yeah.
What can I tell you? I'm the kind of person who likes to do anything I can for other people, and you don't. And you want to make everything like boundary and about you and taking care of your own needs. What about everybody else in the world? What about my family?
What does she say to that switch? You guys are going to do a lot of walking. Okay.
She says, I'm entitled to have some boundaries in my life. We can have our own life without everything being shared.
Mm-hmm. What does sharing mean to you, Leah?
Sharing.
I call you Leah.
Sure.
I call him Shmuel. Yeah.
Sharing means revealing parts of yourself to other people.
Uh-huh. And what is it about that makes you uncomfortable sharing that with Shmuel?
Because people are not supposed to share themselves with other people.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you learn that?
In my house.
In your house. So in your house,
Yeah.
it was kind of, people didn't share with one another.
Right.
And you would like the same kind of a relationship. Were people close at all in your house?
Yeah.
They were close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
In a way.
So would you know how to share if you were to be asked to share something about yourself?
It would make me uncomfortable.
Now, incidentally, time. This is just a juncture where I can teach something else, okay? You may have noticed on the sheets that I gave you, I have an exercise called concentric circles. Concentric circles is something that Arnold Lazarus developed. Zechrono Livrocha. He was, I wouldn't say he was a mentor of mine, but I liked his work. I followed him around a lot. Arnold Lazarus was at Rutgers University. He was a behavioral psychologist. He worked a lot with marriage and relationships. A concentric circle. Oh, I have a whiteboard over here. I know I'm moving away from this, and I'm teaching this like on the go.
Sorry.
That's what ADD people do.
Whiteboard.
But it's this is important. I don't know when else I'll be able to teach something like this. When we do this, okay, I'm going to do it.
A videographer.
I know some couples that have the same name, like Ariel, yeah.
Okay. You've seen me do this in, yeah. Have you ever seen the concentric circles? How many of you? You've had me before in class in human
What do you
behavior.
mean by concentric? Like
Round.
like
Sorry.
the infinity loop?
Okay, thanks.
No.
Yeah.
This is
I don't think so.
concentric
No, the-
circle.
Big, small, small.
Yeah,
Inside.
that I've seen, yeah.
Okay. A, B, C, and D. And this is the self that we can share with others. On a D level, name, rank, and serial number. You meet somebody on a train, you're talking to them, you don't know who they are, you'll share it with them. I come from here, I live there, but each person has different material in each of their realms. So there are people who wouldn't talk about their family life, and there are people, I recall in one of my classes in the 80s when sex was nature's way of saying hello, that one of the guys raised his hand and was talking about his sperm count. Now, it's not usual for men to do that, but it was not in his A area. That was in his D area. So that kind of taught me how individualized these concentric circles are. So in the D area, it's information that could go on the front page of the Jerusalem Post. The C area is if you know people and you want to share something about yourself, but it'll be safe enough to share it. Oh, you're at a cocktail party, you're at a misiba, you're at someplace where you have people, but you're still guarded. The B area is what you share with friends, people whom you trust. And the A area you share with virtually no one, except people whom you trust very intimately, like a spouse or a therapist. So there are people who share spouses who look like this. I'm talking about the A area. They live side by side. It's like parallel play. They don't share much of themselves. And there are some who overshare. Not overshare, but they're enmeshed. Now, everything. But keep in mind, there is always one part of the self, even in an enmeshed relationship, that is not shared. And then there are those who share a fair amount with their spouse, and then that's it. Yeah.
So you're saying here with Leah's couple, the expectations of this is different.
Okay. So this couple here, she has expectations of this.
Right.
He has she sees him as having
As the middle
expectations of this.
Yeah.
And he just may want this. So why did I think of it now?
I love this visual.
What?
I love this visual.
Yeah.
Can you say how you bring this
Now, there are
actually
people,
into a session?
now this, just to take up one more step since I'm teaching it, there are people whose concentric circles, where is that?
Very high up.
Boy,
Even higher up. All the way up the top.
Oh, you get it.
Shake.
I never had in mind that when you would assist me here, that you would be erasing the board.
When I had
Is
that,
it she?
I guess you never know any issue.
Come on, show us your
Oh,
basketball
I
skills.
see.
Come on.
Okay, that's all right, nothing. You don't have to endanger your life.
Oh no, that's such a crap
Oh, thank you. Malasov. Okay, you saved the day, though. All right, so there are
The great
people
therapist knows where the Broadway is.
whose cycle looks like this. A, B, C, D. Okay. Now, somebody who has a big A area like that,
It's a narcissist.
how would you describe them?
Very private.
Very.
Very
Very
The
private.
opposite, the opposite.
private.
Very private.
It's all about
Very
them.
private.
It's all about
Big A area. And
Yeah.
some people have
Yeah.
Wait, does that mean
walls around their A area.
Right. It doesn't mean it's
Even
all
in that
about them, or just
area.
that they don't share.
No, they
a
don't
lot.
share a
Don't
lot.
share.
Okay.
They're,
Yeah.
for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they may be fearful to share,
Yeah.
they're anxious to share,
Yeah.
whatever it is, vulnerable.
Hold on.
But this area, this is the most vulnerable area that we have, sharing that A area. So optimally, a couple should be able to share a good part of their A area with one another. Even if there are parts of the A area that one doesn't share. When I said that in one of my classes, I don't think any of you were in that class, so somebody had said, I share everything with my wife. We don't have any secrets. I said, did you ever go out with any girl before you went out with your wife? He said, yeah. I said, you tell your wife all the things you did with that girlfriend of yours? No. So some things we don't share. And we don't share certain fantasies of whatever, attraction or murderous fantasies, if you have any sometimes. Sometimes there are things you don't share. Soloveitchik talks about this, by the way, in one of his essays, about there always being a part of the self that's lonely, that's lonely. Okay, so Now, with a couple like this, if I was working with them, I would use these circles and ask, what each of them would like it to look like. It's like a sculpting with a diagram, and what would go into each of these categories? It would become a discussion. What would go into each of these categories, etc., etc. Okay, that was a derech agav. I wanted to teach that.
Is the aim for them to understand each other? Is the aim to come to some kind of compromise, meaning it's just identifying their styles?
It has to do with a sense of closeness also in terms of how much they interact and what it means to each of them and what kind of relationship they have. In a sense, it's similar to sculpting, not as dramatic, but it does say something about how close each of them feels. The way I do this is, I give each of them a piece of paper, I explain this, and then I ask them each to draw their relationship as they see it. How do you see your relationship? How do you see yourself? Are you very open? Are you very closed? Who do you share this with? Who do you share that with? And the more intimate the relationship, the more of the A area, not all, but the more of the A area that's shared. First of all, does this ring true in terms of your own life, what I just described? Okay, it always did to me.
Could you ask the couple to shade in how much of the A area they're prepared to share with each other? For each of them, to sort of make it more graphic, like colour in how much of it you're sharing.
Where do you think how would you describe your relationship in terms of the sharing of the area?
Okay, fine.
And then, how would you like to see it?
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the sculpting. Okay?
Is there anything that concentric circles can offer that sculpting does not?
Yeah, some people will not sculpt. They just won't. So you can use this. This can be a warm-up to sculpting. Because now you're talking about your closeness and distance and what you share and what you don't.
So specifically sharing.
Sculpting is more powerful, for sure. This could be a warm-up for it. It could be a discussion after sculpting or what. It's a different way of looking at it.
I think it just misses out on the emotional regulation.
Yeah, it
fear.
does.
Like it's actually two-dimensional.
It is two-dimensional, and it doesn't give you as much as sculpting, but it's not a big warm-up. Not a big warm-up.
What's the
Yeah?
So first of all, on that, it's specifically about sharing the circles.
Right.
The sculpting isn't just about sharing, right? It can
Sculpting is
express
more.
many things.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Okay.
specifically about vulnerability and closeness.
Right.
Look at this case over here. It's so appropriate to bring this in.
It would be very messy, actually,
Yeah.
to do this with them, because she would say, I can't share my A with you because you will share, because for him, if closeness
so
is sharing her A
Leah,
with other people.
Leah, what would you look like? What
would I look
the way-
like?
I'm sorry,
The
not you.
client? The
What
client?
what does your relationship look like
Like this.
with Shmuel? Yeah, like
this.
that.
And how much,
Right.
and how much
But
was she
Shmuel
prepared to
sees
share
it-
of that age?
But Shmuel sees it as, this is me in A, this is B, which includes his family, and this is C and D.
Wait, that's
Here.
Shmuel or her?
This is how I feel.
Okay.
This is how he feels I should be. This is what he wants to take me, who exists like this, and change me into this.
To share with
He can't
other people.
accept-
Share more.
He can't
Have
accept
a
me.
smaller A area,
Yeah.
right?
To move a lot more move things from A to B.
To be more open to share with other people or only with him? Not with him.
To move more things from A to B because he feels that B is.
Okay, let me move to the exercise,
Can I just ask a question you don't have to answer?
very quick.
Okay, because it's the question I started asking. I'm just wondering about couples that they realize the difference and they're able to kind of negotiate, or let's say, if she would have a big A.
It's not gonna be a short question, it's not gonna be a short answer. Hold it, I'm waiting
No,
after
I'm
class,
okay,
I'll
fine.
answer it. Okay, I just wanna move with this because of the time. Okay, so now, do you have a sense of what the guy's looking for? You have this, well, you know, it's your case. So let's sit down over here where everybody can see.
We're just stand.
Just stand, so everyone can
Just
see.
stand.
Can we just stand?
No,
Can't stand.
can all of you see?
Stop criticizing.
I don't mind being loaded up.
I mean, I like it, but if you stop criticizing, it wouldn't matter so much.
They're fighting already, okay. Now, they've laid out their issues, okay? So it sounds like you feel it's inappropriate and uncomfortable for you when Shmuel wants to share aspects of his life. And for you, Shmuel, you want to connect more, you want to be understood more, you want that Leah hear what's going on in your life,
Not just Leah, my family.
your family.
Yeah, I want to tell them all about what's going on.
Is that true? His family too?
Yeah,
Family of origin?
family of origin.
I missed that, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't get that from your family of origin?
What?
Or did you get that from your family? of
Yeah,
origin?
we're very close.
Oh, you already got that from your family of origin, but that was not your family of origin, it's a very different picture.
No.
Okay, so it sounds like the two of you have a dilemma. You would like less of the sharing of self. You feel more comfortable with it. You would like more sharing of the self. Now, I'm gonna ask you if the two of you know of anybody who is very wise and very smart. And if you turn to that person with this dilemma, one of you wanting more, one of you wanting less.
He's gonna say his father, and then it's just gonna go his way because my way's never right.
No, let's get somebody neutral. Well, if you can't come up with somebody, then we'll just create a wise person. The both of you together, or a wise person. And I am going to be you, the both of you. And I'm going to want you to help me out, okay? My hand here, the one facing you, Shmuel, that's you. And when this hand is out, I'm going to speak for you. And when this hand is out, I'm going to speak for you. And I would like you both to be fair to us and to be able to help us in some way resolve an issue that's really standing in the way of our being able to have a comfortable relationship. Okay? So the two of you will have to discuss this in a way that both of us are going to feel that we're heard. You know? Me, Leah, and you, Shmuel. Okay? So, wise person. I want to be able to share myself with my wife because I want to get closer to her. I want her to know me, and I want to know her. Or else, how could we create a loving relationship? I just feel overwhelmed when it comes at me with all this information. That's not the way I was brought up. Can you help us?
He's right. That the hand's right.
Oh, come on, then you're not really understanding me, are you? What do you mean he's right?
Good to share things.
Well, then you don't really understand me. I get overwhelmed. It's not the way I was brought. It's not the right thing to do.
So you were brought up the wrong way. All you have to do
You
is
know,
change.
you're not really being very neutral, and it doesn't sound like you're consulting on this.
Which is typical. I
Stop. I want you both to be somebody from the outside who's looking at this couple, not taking sides, but trying to help us. We're gonna need to talk about it. Maybe you ought to talk about it now that you've gotten the problem laid out to you. You can talk about it now. How would you solve this couple's problem? It's not you.
We haven't actually like talked to each other. Trying to think about that. Okay, I hear that it's important for you to be.
Him. Nope.
What, him?
You're talking about this couple.
Oh, okay.
You're the wise people.
I'm the wise.
You are the wise person.
But we're talking to each other as the
About
wise
as the
person.
wise person.
How are we gonna help them?
this couple.
Okay, it sounds like we need to find common ground. Maybe figuring out like what is comfortable for both of us. Like, is it gonna overlap?
I don't know if there's any overlap. I mean,
You can speak up louder so that people can.
I don't know if there's any overlap. They seem to have. I mean, I understand. The way I understood it, they both agree that sharing is good. Just one person can't.
She can if she's accepted for who she is, and not blamed for all the problems that he experiences. And part of that is being a reserved personality and contained.
So I guess I don't understand because a reserved person doesn't share.
Don't play him. Be a wise, objective person looking to solve their problem. Don't fight for your position. That's not what your role is right now. Solve their problem. You're another couple, a wise couple now. You're a pain in the, you know,
Oh, okay. So how can he encourage her to share more?
She really needs to, she needs to be able to start building up trust that what she confides in him will stay with him.
But how can I build up trust? What do I have to do to help her feel trusted?
You have to, I think he has to really be.
Well, get into a neutral head. Because I'm going to just encourage you to get into a neutral head. Don't take sides. Get into a neutral head. Be a problem solver now for this couple.
I think he needs to be encouraged to be consistent about sharing her information or not sharing her information. I think the consistency will help her be able to be more confident that she could trust that he'll hold what she lets him know.
Could you now give us that advice that you just shared?
Okay. The advice is for the husband,
For me, yeah.
Shmuel.
Yeah.
It's important for you to develop consistency about what information of your wife's you share, so that she knows that if she tells you certain types of things, it's just going to stay with you.
Can you give me examples? Because I want to understand that.
Okay. An important piece of this is respecting what she decides is private. So for example, she doesn't like having pictures taken of her and then shared with the family. And so she needs to know consistently that you're gonna ask her permission before sharing a picture, even though it's hard for you because it doesn't feel so private.
So if I would just be able to share with her things before I would share with anybody else and ask her if it's okay, then that would help her to trust me more. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that sounds good. That sounds good. Any other suggestions? Does that mean that I will then be able to share myself more with her? If she trusts me more and I won't be sharing things outside of our relationship?
It's hard to say yes with confidence
Hmm.
because it's hard to really see that this will happen, but theoretically.
You're not being neutral.
That
wasn't neutral.
Yeah, it wasn't neutral.
Yeah.
It wasn't neutral.
So do you think that then she would be able to share more if she trusts me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because that was your advice.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you have any advice to give?
I don't know. I think everything I would say would be.
You what?
Anything I have to say would be not so neutral.
You can't be neutral.
I don't like the advice that she gave.
Well, could we talk about it?
Okay. Neutrally with her?
Well, you are trying to help us.
How do you help him feel that when he's not allowed to send pictures to his family, that he's not losing his connection with his family?
I'll tell you why. Because what goes on between us is intimate. There has to be a boundary around us. You want to be closer to me, then you can't be a leaky pipe and let everything out that's between us. It breaks up my trust in you. Did you hear what she had to say?
I don't think she addressed the question I asked this wise person.
Okay, just be quiet. I'll try and keep them quiet while the two of you.
It's very challenging because he feels.
Who are you talking to now?
I'm talking to Shmuel.
Well, okay.
It's really challenging because he feels that he is pulled between his wife and his family, and he would love to please everyone. And and it's hard for her because she feels pitted against his family. So you're right, it's not an easy solution.
So the two of you, have you come to any way of helping us?
Is there?
Okay, I'm gonna call time. What was that like for you? Shmuel, you seem to be struggling.
I felt like I'm in character, out of character, out of character.
You felt what?
I
Did very
felt,
well in character, by the way.
I felt that that the theoretical the suggestion in theory was fine, but there was no space for me to. But it felt very, very like it was asking too much of me, and there was no space in this intervention for me to express that.
Well, what made you feel that?
That there was no space.
No, what was the?
To say that I can't send pictures to my family without asking permission first, and knowing that she's going to say no often, makes me, that's something that I.
But I was asking you to not be shmuel.
I know it was very hard for me
Not to be shmuel.
to not. I mean, that touched such a.
Nerve.
Or that even though I was trying not to be me, but that was like it seems so ridiculous to me that it's very hard for me to step out of my
Role.
I think my experience as if I'm that close to my family and I presumably send pictures all the time.
So then you switch roles with me, and I would show you how to do that. But he feels very close to his family, and he feels that if he doesn't show them pictures of us, that it'll kind of cut them off from him. He's so used to showing those pictures. What should we do about that?
I think it's really hard because she feels blamed for him.
She feels
Feeling blamed for him being cut off from his family.
that doesn't feel fair, does it?
No.
That doesn't feel fair. So she feels blamed then, and he feels that if he doesn't show the pictures, that if he doesn't show the pictures, that they're going to blame you. He doesn't seem to protect her at all, does he? Like he's blamed by his family. She's blamed by his family. He doesn't protect her, huh?
Well, that's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know if she ever asked for protection.
But yet, and to be able to even say to them, I'm married now, and I have a relationship with my wife, and I can't talk about that. Well, if Leah likes the picture, then I'll show it to you, if it's okay with her. You can't say that, huh?
It's more about.
Do you think that if we suggested to them that he'd be able to talk to Leah about what he could share with his family, that she would trust him more?
You know what? It just occurred to me that maybe what I would like to see from them is them to be able to talk about the issue enough so that she feels enough trust that there are times where she knows that it's okay if he shares a picture without me needing to approve it.
And that would
That
probably
would be
be
more
true
relaxed.
for a lot of things,
That would
right?
be more relaxed,
Okay.
yeah.
Shmuel, did you get the idea of what being neutral is?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, we want, you guys have to solve our problem.
So I'm allowed to bring up issues with her with her solution as long as it's in a collaborative way.
Collaborative, and
I mean, if I see he'll have a problem with that.
what's that?
If I see he'll have a problem with her.
Oh, he didn't speak up. I'm representing
He
him.
didn't speak up.
Well, yeah, then you bring it up in a collaborative way. I wonder how he would feel about that, because for him, being close to his family means whatever it means. So how can he be close to his family without them feeling cut off and without blaming Leah? That's the way you would ask the question. So, time. This is training them to be objective about this couple who's them. And it's a way of getting, and this was a couple that, well, Leah was more prepared and Shmuel felt less represented, so I have to make some course corrections. I might switch roles with them,
And you
but
would do
the
that as a
idea would be
therapist.
they're collaborative, talking about this couple, and if they were a wise couple, somebody who was older and wiser, what would they suggest so that this couple can resolve their issues?
It takes like a lot of, I don't know, mentalizing for
Well,
them.
it's even more difficult because you're not that couple.
No, for them, I'm saying, I'm picturing the couple doing this exercise, going outside of themselves and seeing their situation more objectively. It takes a
Right.
lot of mentalizing
Right.
and a lot of like
Mhm.
tamping down their
Defense.
Right.
defenses,
Yeah.
Well,
emotions.
It's
you
even-
had- you had an interesting experience. You
Well,
wanna share it?
there's two versions of that. One is I had a couple where he was like, I called people and I asked for advice and everyone told me this, and then she pipes up and she says, well, you got very bad advice.
We're very,
She said to him, well, you got very bad advice.
I just had that last night.
So this kind of just came, and I said, you know what? Hold it right there. I can put you in touch with somebody, I'm telling the husband, who's gonna give you really good advice. She really gets the kind of woman that your wife is. I'm gonna give you her number, and I'm gonna ask you to call her, because this advice, it's gonna be right on the mark. So I kind of separate them so they don't see, and I tell them to pretend they're on the phone. And I take, call up, I have this woman here, you now are gonna be really giving the best advice for his young wife and he can't figure out. So he calls her up, his own wife, to give advice about it. So he starts saying, you know, I don't know what to do, she seems to just run away from me. And she starts talking, and then he's asking, just write it, do you wanna write it down? You're not gonna be able to be on the phone with this woman for a while, she doesn't have a lot of time. So just write down what she's saying. And by the way, that's when I saw that he had dysgraphia.
Yeah.
This
And
one?
he wrote everything backwards. Anyways, so she starts getting riled up a little bit because she's now the coach. But I'm interjecting by saying, well, what does that mean she needs more time? He doesn't understand, but you really do understand. So tell him what that means. More time. More time for what? Like more hours in the day. And this way I had the wife externalize herself from herself instead of yelling. The other thing that you were talking, that was one way that I used kind of an inner coach, but not to self. But the other way is I had a couple I was working with that was already kind of further down the line, and it was around some virtual infidelity porn stuff. And I had a new couple that was very new. They were kind of undoing some of the stuff happened early in their marriage. They were already married 7 years. Then I had a new couple who was married only 6 months, and a similar event had occurred. And I said to this couple without any information, I said, you know, I thought about you this morning because yesterday I had this really young couple that came in and sounded so similar to the story you described. I was thinking about you guys because you're in such a different place now. And I was wondering if we could have this couple come in and you could give them advice, having been through that. What would you tell them? Mm-hmm. And so it also gave, they played that role to this kind of imaginary but real couple. And it also gave them that sense of like, we came out of this with something. Mm-hmm. And we have what to offer. And we're not just whatever. And they took turns giving advice to almost their younger selves. And it was very powerful for them to feel it was different because it wasn't advice from older, it was advice from I have what to offer, I've moved, we've gained. And it also almost reminder to self about what they're
It's
doing.
very nice, very nice. This I took from a
It was
method I saw.
respectful to this
Yeah,
one.
no, right, it's very nice, and it's a good timing because they could look back on where they were, they can give each other, they can give advice that they follow themselves. There's something called the Wise Coach, where it's usually on a one-to-one, where the person gives advice to himself. If he was a wise coach, what would he say? So it's similar. The idea being to externalize. Can't use this all the time. It's not something you could use easily when there's a lot of emotion in the room, because you're going to get something that's going to need a lot of work. But if they're at a point where they could look at themselves more objectively, then this is a way to kind of nail it home. Your reaction?
I'm just wondering about the couple that's most are so stuck in their experience in their cycle, and how well it works for most
Stuck
of them.
like this?
Yeah, it can be really stuck, and a lot of couples, they run out of creativity of being a wise person because they're really, really stuck in their experience, and they're trying to think otherwise, but they can't. I mean, maybe some do, some don't, but I can imagine that some are really like different than a couple looking back at the progress they did. It's probably easier to say, to give advice to the younger, to the how they once were. But if a couple is really now still in the height of like, I just can't figure out, we're so stuck, there's no way out, only divorce or whatever.
You know,
So I'll say, wait, can I say something?
Sure.
In this, so I don't think we came out with any actual solution. If we had more time, maybe, but I'm not sure we were going to. What did come out from it though was, at the very least, a better I understood. I was because I was trying to stay I was staying objective as Leah was giving the advice. So I at least had to hear her. And even if we don't come out with a solution, there still was some benefit of empathy and thinking about things in a more objective way, such that it might move some gears in the future that will come out. That was a benefit that I did find. You're right. I don't think we were going to come up with a solution because, I mean, I don't really know the husband, but knowing what I imagine the husband to be like, you ask me not to send pictures of my family, like, no way. That's not happening. No way that's happening.
What?
And so I don't know if solutions are going to come out, but I did understand at least why it bothers her more.
So the externalizing is to kind of go more cognitive than emotionally triggered?
Yeah.
Is that the intention?
Yeah.
That was clear.
To go more cognitive.
So would you have a time you would place that more in a session, in the couple's work, rather than, let's say, earlier or later?
Yeah, where would it go in the?
A little bit later.
Later, right? After
So
the
maybe the
emotional
warm
parts
up
are
for
worked
such,
out.
Dr. Levitz, maybe the warm up for such an exercise would be with a little bit more like, you know, you're a very secure older couple and you've got no skin in the game. You just happen to have this young couple that you're like warming them up as secure,
Right.
you know, older, wiser, not detached in an emotional, you know, not overly attached. Like the warm up of like, you're much more secure. You know what marriage is really about, and you've got no skin in the game.
Possibly.
So,
Possibly.
Is it,
Sorry, I have to leave a few minutes early.
Okay,
is
go
there, cause the wise, meaning the externalizing and the cognitive kind of wise mind reminds me a lot of some DBT that I use, and I'm wondering, do you ever incorporate any of that, like
CBT?
DBT?
You know, even though I've taken DBT workshops with the originator at APA conferences, I don't know that much about it. I understand the theory of it, but I haven't used it with couples, you know.
Yeah.
I used it with this couple a little bit.
Right, no, because part of it is the wise mind, but it's a little different, but a lot of it is externalizing, meaning similar to CBT, it's externalizing yourself from being so steeped in your emotions.
Right.
So you're able to, and wise, right, that's what wise mind is, you're able to
that's
separate.
the same concept.
Right, so that's what I
But
was.
It's called, you know, in
did
other
take it from
languages,
DBT, I don't know.
Fonagy calls it externalization and
Right.
mentalization. It's all just packaged.
All the same.
Packaged differently.
Yeah, similar,
Right.
Wasn't it you said that if you want to sell something, you got to put it in a nice package?
that's right.
you have to rebrand it. If it's been sold already, then you have to
All right.
rebrand it.
Zeb always says,
Um,
old wine in new bottles.
Okay, how are we on time? Just about 4 minutes away. Any other questions, anything that we left out? Any reaction to this kind of an exercise? There are different ways of doing this, you know, depending on who the couple is. I might have taken Shmuel for a walk and done what's called a soliloquy. A walk is just to the other side of the room, and we walk around the garden, and we talk and say, gee, what's it like? You know, you're not able to share that with her. What do you think bothers her about it, you know? And does she understand that? Did you realize? Is it possible that you overwhelm her, or maybe she doesn't trust you? Because, you know, we would have that soliloquy, and then I would take you for a walk and say, what's things like for you, you know? And I would just be a curious, compassionate investigator, asking questions. Then I put you both back together to talk, you know? Yeah.
I'm feeling some cognitive dissonance seeing this, because what's coming up for me inside when I watch this is that this kind of experience of, wow, their emotional system is being hijacked right now.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means that, like, we're saying, okay, you're wise people, your cognition can solve any problem. And then they go and try to work it out with cognition, and their whole underlying emotional process is like being blown up or thrown to the garbage. And that's my experience, my feeling.
You make a nice point, which is why I would do it later on when they have settled emotionally to more of a plateau.
I'm not saying that they're escalated. I'm saying that they're having emotional things that are coming up when they're trying to problem solve with their cognition, and when they tried to do it, all these emotional issues of his connection with his family and everything like that are hijacking their cognitive process.
True, and I want him to think it through. I want him to think it through about boundaries, and that's why I inserted
Which is why it might be better to do it, older couple, either the older couple or not in a place where, like, when I did it with that couple to a younger couple, they were already in a much better place. It was much more of a consolidation for themselves.
Yeah.
And confirming the admiration and respect of what they've done. So they were in an emotionally raw place. It almost was just consolidating and amplifying in a respectful way. But if they were a very still raw place, I wouldn't necessarily make them collaborate. I'd do the one, so you can at least be supportive to one. Yeah. And then the other.
Long
like I've got the expert on your wife over here. She's going to give you some coaching.
Right.
And then you can kind of support her in that cognitive place and help him contain whatever's getting triggered. I wouldn't, in a raw place,
make
them collaborate if they're unable to.
I would do the role reversal in a raw place.
There's a lot of other places.
I would do doubling in a raw place. And when things are calmer, which is really our maskana here today, when things are calmer, that you do this, you know, either to consolidate